Hey guys. So for this week, I focused my efforts in Draw.io, which is a actually a pretty cool tool that I use for designing different workflows and charts. And this week, I wanted to focus on more of the mechanics and stats and how each stat influences one another when it's in reference to the animals in the game. So to start, I'm just doing. So there'll be wild animals and owned animals. Wild animals can be tamed. Um, but this one here is going to be focused on ones that are already tamed or bought from an NPC, such as like cows or chickens or anything like that. And yeah, so let's get started here. So starting from the top, we have age, bond, health, and happiness. So these are going to be the four main stats that tie into the if the animal produces anything, such as just like eggs or milk, and then also the produce quality, which would be determined by your bond with the animal, health and happiness of the animal. And over certain thresholds, you'll have greater quality, as well as age will be a factor too. So starting off here, we have an event called New Day. So at the end of each day, which I set up for the crops already, where each day it triggers if the crop's watered, it will grow. Same thing for the animal. So like if the event New Day is triggered, so each animal will subscribe to it, that event, and then it'll increase in age, and it will become hungry at the end of the day. So every day you wake up, the animal will be hungry, and if you do not feed it, it will have a negative effect to the health. And if you do feed it in this feeding section here, it'll become not hungry and it actually will increase your animal's health. Um, Same thing with bond. So once you feed the animal, it will increase the bond and we'll go down the line here. So active pet is one that it's not in any of your typical farming type games like Harvest Moon or Stardew Valley, but I wanted to have the ability. So, like in, let's say, like World of Warcraft, where you have a pet that follows you around. Um, I want the same kind of thing where you could take one of your pets and maybe have perks to add an additional pet. I haven't done that yet, but just a thought. So, when you travel around and you have your pet active every hour, that will increase their bond a certain amount with the animal. So this way, you could any animal you're particularly focused on that you're traveling with will be able to gain happiness or bond more quickly than the other ones. Going down the line, feeding will also make the animal not hungry, and then by the end of the day, it will calculate and add some bond and health to the animal. Petting will also add bond and happiness. If you leave the animal outside, I'm making this like an hourly type trigger. So I'll have event new hour. And if it's outside in the rain for a particular hour, it's going to subtract a certain amount of health from the animal. Um, and obviously, you don't want to leave it outside. Now, if it's outside in the sun, it will actually increase the health of the animal and probably happiness too. I haven't drawn an arrow there yet, but probably just depending on how the calculations work. And then also collecting produce, milking or shearing sheep's wool or anything like that will also increase the bond and happiness. And all these different factors will have different values that tie into each of these stats. And as I mentioned before, the combination of these stats will affect the overall produce and produce quality. And then, if the health drops below, let's say like 25% or something, maybe it's a very great, good chance that the animal will become sick. So you want to, take care of the animals. Um, and when all these stats are high, obviously you'll be able to they'll produce produce if they're not hungry, and the quality will be much better. In addition, I want to add certain events such as like festivals where you could bring your animals to them, and depending on these stats, that will be kind of the indication and rating, which will determine how well they place in those events. So that's the first part here. Scrolling down, I made this here with these little emojis that were available here. You could also, if you use this draw.io, if you type emoji, you can see all different ones. So I just use these for now. I mean, these aren't the exact ones that I'll be using, but just to give myself an indication of maybe how I'll be indicating how the animal's doing at first glance rather than having to go through 1,000 windows to see how they are, how they're doing in these three categories. So first off, so bond. Any wild animals will probably start off as neutral, and then as you gain bond, I'm going to use the same type of grading category as for animals as well as like human NPCs. And obviously, like these stats, you're not going to be petting an NPC or feeding one, but maybe giving gifts or speaking to them will increase your bond with them. But I wanted to keep the system pretty similar and linear. So we'll see how that works. But for now, this is what I have. Like, if you treat them poorly and their happiness and everything drops, your bond will decrease. And hated, this also will be proven true for like enemies, kind of like a reputation type thing. And then as you continue to take care of your pet and feed it and travel with it, eventually you'll get greater bond with it, and then you'll be able to get the best produce from them, and also be able to win the top festivals. So same thing with health. We have sick, poor, good, healthy, and very healthy, and then happiness. The same kind of metrics here. So each of these will tie into the animal stats class, which I will update in Unity. And for next week, I'm going to have to focus on how each of these is affected and how each of these metrics get calculated. So some might be calculated hourly, such as this, like where the animals are at any given time, whether they're indoors or they're outside, or if they're outside, what's the weather like, and that'll determine if the health or happiness decreases or increases. Petting, we'll have it like one pet per day. So like I'll use a bool is pet, is fed I'll use, and is outside. So I have a few stats there. And is active will be another one, and that will tie into the player where he only could have he or she could have only one or two active pets depending on what perks he has. So that's it for now. That's the basics. I'm going to focus on a little bit more detail next week with the specific values and see how they tie in. And I'm thinking, so the whole thing is going to be maybe different seasons. So spring, summer, fall, winter. And so each animal, each month, they'll gain an age in months rather than having to do it in days. And then maybe after 2 or 3 months, the animal will be old enough to be an adult animal and start producing anything at all. When they're first young, they won't be able to produce anything, but as they age, they'll be able to produce higher level quality produce, as well as the quality will be determined by these stats as well. And also, if the animal's not fed for the previous day, it's not going to even produce anything. So if it's hungry, it's not going to produce. So that's it. We're already pretty much at like almost 10 minutes here. So I'm going to end the video here, and thank you for watching.